Today, one of America's foremost pollsters, John McLaughlin, who once again is advising former President Donald Trump, talks about what's underneath the numbers and what both candidates can do to change them. In a race many expect will be one of the closest in American history. From Ballard Studios in Washington, D.C., it's 13th and Park.
We give you information, not a panic attack.
I mean, look what's going on. I mean, my God.
This was it. My kids were gonna die.
That time is gone forever.
This is the biggest story in America.
We weren't prepared for this.
Don't you want to speak truth to power?
Toughest thing I ever had to do.
John McLaughlin. I mean, I love saying those two words, Johnny McLaughlin. For the sake of the audience, you and I go back a long ways, decades into a experience that we shared together in the city of brotherly love, Philadelphia. Yes. Let's get right at it. Campaign 2024. I want to bring up a couple of slides in your most recent national survey and kind of get your commentary on this. And just start with the obvious, the right-wrong direction. 18% right, 75% of Americans think we're headed in the wrong direction.
Right.
You know, you and I always look at what's underneath polls. How do you explain that kind of figure, and what kind of impact does that have on both our psychology and on the election ahead?
Right. It's not good for the incumbent party, and that's in the White House, it's the Democrats. And, you know, full disclosure with me is like, you know, I've always worked for Trump, and I'm working for Trump again. But when Trump won the first time, when Barack Obama was term limited, couldn't run again, 2/3 of the country said we were on the wrong track. And it created a pathway that Trump was able to win the election against Hillary Clinton because Hillary was more of the same. Kamala Harris is trying to run away from this, what's going on with Joe Biden. If you blame Kamala Harris as much as you blame Joe Biden for what's going on in the past 3.5 years, you're not going to vote for her. And there's a good number of those voters, believe it or not, that don't like Donald Trump personally, but they want to see the policies come back. They want to see the lower inflation. They want to see crime go down. They want to end these endless wars. And the border absolutely would have been secure if Trump was president. So this wrong track is a looming major worry time for the Kamala Harris people, because they're using the Democrat National Convention to try to separate her from this. I mean, Joe Biden, they put the guy way past prime time. It was like everybody's going to bed. They didn't want to see him there. What they've done to the poor guy. And Harris was sitting there in her box, very smugly watching the whole thing. She never won a primary or caucus, and she's going to be the nominee. And they're trying to use her as a vehicle to get away from the wrong track for the country, because people are really worried about the direction of the country.
Well, clearly, I think it's fair to say, without exaggeration, when Joe Biden took the stage on day one of the DNC, late into the night, many speculated with reason they were trying to hide that part of the past or the now with the Biden-Harris White House. That clearly was a purposeful attempt to kind of separate out from what is, to try to get everyone to focus on what could be.
Right. And it's insulting to Biden because she was the handpicked candidate of Joe Biden. And everybody was concerned about his health after Trump beat him in the debate. And Trump beat him on the issues. He tackled every issue, answered every question, didn't take the bait when Biden tried to personally attack him, and really proved his case on inflation, the economy, the border, et cetera. But Biden got crushed in the debate, and all of a sudden we care about Joe's health. Forget the polls. Forget the polls.
Right.
I mean, if Biden had won the debate or had done well enough that he was in a close race, they would have left him on the ticket. This is all about control, because the amazing thing about it is, how do you keep Biden as president until January 20th, knowing that he's not well and supposedly they were going to vote the 25th Amendment against him? You know, he can't run for president, but he can be president. And that's, you know, every one of our adversaries, whether it's Iran, China, Venezuela, Russia, they all know this. And we could face some really perilous times between now and January 20th.
We put up a slide from your survey having to do with the most important issues. Kind of give us the bottom line on what we're looking at here.
Well, by the way, if any of your viewers want to look at this, it's on our website at McLaughlinonline.com. But basically, we ask people every month, we ask them what's the most important issue that would decide their vote. And 45% of the answers were related to economic issues. You've seen these clusters before. When we clustered, we grouped them. 29% said it was inflation and cost of living. And this is July 29th. We published it August 1st. So it's fairly recent. And then 22% said social issues. Only 6% were abortion as a top issue. They might have opinions on it and it might influence their vote, but as a top issue, it's only 6%.
That's interesting.
So the economic issues are stronger than the social issues. And you have 17% care about what we call security issues. Border immigration was 10, national defense, terrorism, 2%, crime, 2%. And these were top issues. And what's interesting is the economic issues vote for, if you picked an economic issue, you prefer Trump for president. If you picked a security issue, you prefer Trump for president, and the Republicans also for Congress, Senate. But if you pick a social issue, you tend to be more of a Democratic voter.
Isn't that where, Johnny, you might say the dueling narratives are headed? That Team Trump wants us to be a referendum on the economy and security, and Team Harris wants it to be a referendum on social issues.
Mm-hmm.
That may be the square off in a way in this campaign that's ahead of us.
Yes, absolutely. Because you see now the Democrats, particularly the ones running for Congress, the DCCC is running ads on abortion.
Yeah.
And the Harris campaign and before that, the Biden campaign, they were running ads on abortion plus January 6th democracy, preserving democracy. But the democracy attack hasn't worked as well except within their base. Because if you're a Trump voter, you think that Harris and Biden are a threat to democracy. But the economic issues, that's where the swing voters are. They're on inflation. That's why she came out with price controls, because that's the big government socialist answer to inflation is shortages and more government spending. So more inflation and fewer goods. I mean, that's a socialist answer. So that's where Kamala Harris is.
You remember as well as anyone, 2016, I think the secret hidden issue, which was actually hidden in plain sight, as they say, was the economic squeeze a lot of people were feeling as the cost of living was going up much faster than wages.
Right.
Is the same thing is in play in 24, even more so, isn't it?
Yes. And when you look at this chart, you can see that the economy getting worse, not better. It was 65 to 29, and it's inflation related. It's not that they're worried about losing their jobs yet, which they may be if, God forbid, Kamala Harris wins and she gets rid of the Trump tax cuts. You'll see businesses leaving the United States, and you'll see people not hiring. Small businesses will be crushed. So while Biden with a straight face last night and Kamala Harris throughout the rest of this Democrat convention, they're going to say inflation's going down. And the average person who goes to the supermarket, who buys gas, who tries to get a home mortgage, pays rent, pays utility bills, they're going to be like, what are they talking about? They're not telling you the truth. So it's tough on a lot of people.
It's clear that what Kamala Harris wants to do is turn the page and say, but look over here where we could go without really accepting, I think it's fair to say, any responsibility necessarily for what is. Is that a part of kind of the key battle to come between Trump and Harris?
Absolutely, because she's trying to run so far from Biden. And Harris, by the way, this slide you're about to show, Harris, she was in June 40 favorable, 54 unfavorable. The media coordination has been unbelievable, where she's now, this was again after a couple of weeks of media hype, she became a 45 favorable, 51 unfavorable, still a net negative. And yesterday, Brent Bozell in the Media Research Center, he put out a study where since she's gotten handpicked by Biden, 84% of her media coverage has been positive. 89% of their coverage of Trump has been negative. You talk about partisan media. So it's unbelievable.
But the media that's been positive for Kamala Harris, it's fair to say, has not been focused on the record. It's not been focused on what she's done or not done, achieved or not achieved. It's on kind of this, thank goodness Joe Biden is not going to continue on and run for another 4 years. There's almost a sense of relief about it. And in a very highly choreographed fashion, Kamala has come sprinting out of the gate, no press conferences, no engagement on the issues, but giving rally-like speeches to favorable audiences across the country.
Right. And really running away from the issues, because that same Media Research Center that Brent Bozell runs, they did a study with us the previous week that they published of 800 Democratic voters and 400 independents who voted for Biden in 2020. And I got to read you these things. When they asked, are you aware or unaware of the following issues? 71% were not aware. Never visited a conflict zone on the border as borders are. 72% not aware. That she doesn't consider it a crime to enter the U.S. illegally. 74% not aware. Named the most liberal senator in the U.S. Senate in 2019. That means more than Sanders and Warren. She supports abolishing ICE. 77 not aware. She promoted a fund to bail out violent protesters during the 2020 riots. 78% not aware. And wants to eliminate private health insurance. 81% not aware.
Wow.
So, you've done this before for candidates where, you sit in the room and they're saying, they'll tell you their positions is like, and I'm sure you said, we're not making an ad on that.
Right.
So we're going to make an ad instead on this. And the Democrat Party, the big media that aligns with the Democrats, big tech that aligns with the Democrats, they're running away from her record and they're reintroducing her as like a brand new candidate who's never run before.
That's it.
So it's stunning. You've hit the nail on the head.
Well, you said they're reintroducing her. It's a reset button, right? And they're going to try to do that as much as they can. I don't blame them. You and I, if we were on the other side advising Team Harris, we would probably suggest they do the very same thing. Your most recent survey showed basically a statistical dead heat between Donald Trump and Kamala Harris. But then more interestingly, you said who's most likely to win. Now, maybe that shifted a little bit in the couple of weeks since this survey, but still Donald Trump had a double-digit lead on the expectation it would ultimately be Donald Trump. Given all the gyrations in this race already, the tumultuous tectonic shifts that have happened in like 8 weeks, right? Assuming that more is to come, when do people start to really focus in on what may become the reality of this race? I mean, when is that?
The number of swing voters, when you add up the ones who are leaning to the undecideds, it's less than 10% of the electorate. And Trump, he's also holding 4 or 5 points that voted for Biden in 2020 that are now voting for him because of inflation. And what's amazing is where she's coming back, what the Democrat Party likes about her is that she happens to be African American. So 25% of the voters who have left Biden from 2020 that are now voting for Trump are Black. And 25% are Hispanic. And their average age is 35. They want to get these voters back, and they're trying to reposition her to, pull them back in a way. We did the June survey the day before the debate where Trump and Biden debated in June. And Trump was up too nationally. Now, President Trump will say to me, how come I'm not up by more? That Harvard-Harris has me up 4 points or whatever. And I said, it's modeled after the 2020 turnout. We based it on the CNN exit polls in terms of party affiliation, ideology, race, et cetera. There's a certain amount of Democrats that are coming out. You're only up 2 points. But that's a lot better than 2016 and 2020 when we were down. So I'm like, this is not a Hillary lock. This is not a Biden blue wave. We are in a close race, but to have a lead is good. So in that month, Trump beats Biden badly in the debate. Trump survives by the grace of God an assassin's bullet. That could have really changed history, but thank God he's still with us. And then we had a great convention in Milwaukee that was really party unity. Everybody was thrilled. It was all on message, very hopeful, very future looking. And that Sunday, Biden withdraws and picks Kamala Harris as the candidate.
Right.
And we go into the field like over a week later. And after that tumultuous, historic month, Trump's up too.
Back to square one. Right.
So your question about when they're going to focus? When they debate. So Kamala Harris's mission on September 10th, her mission is to piss Trump off. She wants him to say something that she can say he's a racist. Remember, her big debate performance, her moment against Joe Biden was calling him a racist.
And it's personal. And I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of 2 United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
And she wants to also have him say something that could be seen as misogynistic, that he doesn't like women or something like that. So Biden tried it in the debate and Trump didn't go for it. Biden called him a convicted felon, even though Biden was responsible for all the prosecutions against Trump, where he was basically taking the Putin method to try to put his opponent in jail. And it's still a sentencing out there. I mean, Trump is supposed to, after the debate on September 10th, Judge Juan Merchan, whose daughter is one of the major Democrat digital vendors, she's making millions of dollars. The New York Post said she had made $93 million for Democrat candidates in March, and Biden is their most important client. And Trump can't talk about it. They got a gag order on him. But that judge is conflicted. So he's going to sentence him on September 17th. So I figure if he wins the debate, they'll put him in Rikers Island or home arrest or something like that. I mean, it's just, here we go again.
What a year full of twists and turns and way beyond any conventional playbook. Why would that not happen, right? Why not, right? So, John, as you look at the swing states, you understand better than anyone that when you see a national poll number in a presidential race, it means almost nothing. What means something is how the candidates are doing in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania, Arizona, Nevada, et cetera. Is there one state in particular that you're looking at as kind of a bellwether among all the swing states that could really tell the tale of the tape when it's all said and done?
I think everybody's focused on Pennsylvania right now because that's where both campaigns have spent the most money. That's where they appear to be spending the most time. But I also think that Wisconsin, really close in both times. You know, the focus is on these close states, but you never know. I saw a poll today that came out from Roanoke College, one of those, college polling firms. They had Harris only up 3 in Virginia. And so that's close. That's in the margin of error. And I think in spite of Tim Walz being picked, I think we might have a shot to win Minnesota because they've had it with the Elon Omars and the socialists and what's gone on in Minnesota, since 2020.
Well, you referenced the debate coming up on September 10th. And apparently there's probably going to be a second presidential debate sometime in October. Sandwiched in between will be, of course, the VP debate. For all those people that question whether debates really matter, and there were a lot of people saying that before Trump and Biden squared off, and then the whole political world changed. Could that happen all over again on September 10th? And for whom are the stakes highest? Are the stakes highest for Donald Trump, who America knows a lot better than Kamala Harris? There's Kamala's opportunity to show or try to show she has presidential temper.
I think the stakes are highest for us, for Americans, like seriously, because you have 2 clear visions of where they want to take the country. I mean, Trump has a vision that, he wants no tax on tips. He wants people to work. He wants to have no tax on Social Security. He wants to grow the economy through the free market, through individuals. He wants you to have your choice, your freedoms. And he wants to keep America strong and secure. He doesn't want to be in wars, etc. Harris, she's really about government control. That price control plan, she wants to tell you what you can buy, what businesses can do. She wants to be able to raise taxes. And I mean, if they let the Trump tax cuts lapse, 91% of all voters, all Americans, will pay higher taxes. So you got 2 contrasting visions. Now, the thing that's most interesting about the timing of those debates, people start voting literally 28 days from now. In September, people are voting. October, a lot of states are voting. What's different for the Republicans, if you're a Trump voter, we're going to tell them this time, hey, your state's early in-person voting or absentee. Get the absentees in. Get in line. Go vote. Don't wait for Election Day. That was what probably cost us in 2020. You got to get out there and vote as soon as they allow you to go vote.
So last question, John, so I can get you back on your political battlefield. Is this really going to be a close election? And if so, again, going back to an earlier question, is there a place to look at that will determine maybe the ultimate winner of this campaign?
I think it's going to be a close election, but the Trump campaign, we run like an underdog. We always run like we're behind. The average Trump voter is a working class voter. I mean, he's transformed the Republican Party into the party of the working class. And we're up against like big media, big tech, big Democrat donors, big money, the biggest of the big corporations. So with all that power on the other side at stopping Trump from standing up for the working class, yeah, it's going to be close. They're going to try to suppress our vote. I mean, in 2020, the week before the election, the Washington Post put out a poll. Trump was losing Wisconsin by 17 points. He was in Vegas after doing a rally the night before. At 6 a.m. in the morning, his time, he's calling me. I was at my desk at 9 a.m. He says, what's the matter with this poll? I'm like, it's a bad poll. It's a dead even race in Wisconsin. It's a toss-up. You got to go back there. and it's a week from the election. He said, why would they put out this poll if it's a bad poll? I said, they're putting it out because they know that their vote has voted absentee 2-1, early voting. Our vote is waiting for election day, and they're going to vote for you on election day 2-1. So they know it's a toss-up. So they're trying to suppress our vote by saying that he can't win. If it's cold and snowy, don't bother getting online. There's long lines in Wisconsin. And he says, the president says to me, he says, they would do that? And I said, they hate you. It's like
you and I had a similar experience way back when we were working with Marshall Coleman running against Doug Wilder for governor of Virginia. The Washington Post, I think you remember this, came out within the last couple days, last week of the campaign, saying that Wilder was up something like 13, 14, 15 points. And as you remember election night, that went into the wee hours. This was back in the old days when the election nights actually determined winners as opposed to weeks later. And Marshall Coleman ended up losing that race by 1/10, I think it was 1/10 of 1%, a couple thousand votes, despite the Washington Post basically proclaiming right before the election, it's kind of over.
Yeah, and that was their strategy. So they've done it before, and they're smart people. The people who run their polls have PhDs and all that. But I remember that race because I was like, we have a dead heat. You got to get more people out. And but remember after it was over, they said it was the Wilder effect, that white people weren't going to tell the exit poll people that they were voting for Marshall Coleman. That wasn't the truth. It was your ads. We'd gotten a better message. We were running good ads. Marshall had a good message about reducing crime. On their part, they did attack us on abortion, and Marshall did take the hit. But then when we recovered, we almost pulled it out. I saw a good friend of mine, Al Mitchell, the next day at the Senate committee, and he said, one more day you would have won. And I said, yeah, but it's election day.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's that rigid thing, that one date we can't move. Well, John, first of all, I want to thank you for your friendship over all these years. Your incredible professionalism in this field has been a guide for so many others that do not just polling, but do everything else. I think your insights have always been very, very sharp. And as you say, I think we're looking at an election already breaking all the rules, all the conventions. If in 8 weeks we can go from what seemed to be a certain kind of finale to complete uncertainty with all new players and all new dynamics, anything can happen. We'll stay very, very tied to your analysis, and good luck to you as you try to plumb through the last 77 days of the presidential vineyard.
Well, I miss working with you. And you know what? What's good is your podcasts and your listeners have clearly gone up since I was on your first show. So that's good.
Well, we actually had, I think, 3 subscribers when you did your first show on YouTube. We're now at 865,000. So wow. I want to give you a lot of credit for that. It probably has to be shared with others, but you got us going. John, be well.
Thank you. You do a great job, Adam.
Thanks, John.